Hey, it's Mike from Go Cell Phone Repair, and we're going to be starting a live stream in about 10 minutes. In the meantime, I didn't want you to have to sit there and stare at a timer on the screen, but I also want to give people a chance to show up. So, in the meantime, I thought I'd put together something that hopefully you'll find entertaining. Starting tomorrow, I am going to launch a new series of tutorial videos called the Pro version, and what that's going to do is hopefully help out people who already have experience and don't need a very long, detailed explanation as to how to replace a screen or tear down a phone in general. So check it out. I'll see you in about 10 minutes, and when the stream starts, you can let me know what you think. Hey, what's going on, everyone? I see we got people in the chat. I was kind of sitting back here watching that a bit myself, and I probably just talked over the stinger just now, but whatever. Yeah, I really, really like these frame stickers. They give you an extra piece that goes around the perimeter on the screen, so before you install it, there's nothing sticky to touch. You don't have to worry about it getting stuck to your hands or your tools or the screen itself, the cables. You can go in there and test it. And if your display isn't working, you can still take it off and leave that little ring around the outside. And I don't know about you, but if someone was going to repair my phone, I want to believe that it is going to be, as close to water resistant as it was when I bought it. So that's the whole point of those little stickers. They're relatively inexpensive. I think I got 10 of them for, I think it was about $10 for the 10. So they go a long ways. And really, if anyone is not putting those on, I would assume it's because you plan on opening the phone up again later on. What's going on? We got Johnny Chang, Ben Barros, John Cassidy, Playlist. Good to see you all. What's up? Real World Review, Beha, Joshua Fitzpatrick. Man, we got everybody in the house tonight. Now, I wanted to answer Johnny. You were talking about the gold Benjamin cards, and I love these things for a couple of reasons. One, they're a little bit flashy, whatever, right? But they're water resistant. So even if the outer part of this thing peels off, there's a plastic core on the inside, so you don't have to worry about them disintegrating like a regular deck of playing cards. Also, you saw the gold Benjamin, right, with the sunglasses? There's also a silver version, and you can get these at those little gift shops or online. You can order them on eBay. I want to say there's a store called something like ABC or XYZ or LMNOP or some kind of gift shop like that. I found these in Vegas, and ever since then, this has been my go-to when I need something thin, that doesn't have to be as strong as a piece of metal like an ice SM or a razor blade, and I want to get into a very small opening. You put a little rubbing alcohol, like 91% on here, and man, they're like magic. So I do love these. I wanted to talk about a few things tonight. There's all kinds of stuff. I want to start out with the little clip that I showed you in the beginning, because I really want your feedback on this, especially those of you who are technicians. So if you've seen my channel, one of the things that I have attempted to do since the beginning was to make every tutorial as comprehensive as possible, so that if someone is just a casual person off the street, they want to repair their phone, they're not going to miss out on a lot of information, because that's one of the things that we see in phone repair tutorials. Even when you go to some websites that have their own, they tend to leave out a couple things here and there. So I try to make these as complete as possible. And at the same time, I've discovered through conversations that there are a lot of people out there who are technicians. You already know the basics. All you're really looking for is, how do I get into the phone? Where are the cables located? And is there anything special about this that I need to look out for? So here's my plan, guys. And again, I welcome your feedback on this. And I possibly could cut down that video maybe a couple more minutes. Maybe it's still a little longer than it needs to be. But unfortunately, applying the adhesive on the inside took up a little bit extra time. I really wanted to get that down to 5 minutes, but I'm not sure it's going to happen on that one. However, starting tomorrow, this is my idea, and this is what I'm going to start out with, and I hope that it works. I want to, from now on, publish 2 video tutorials for every repair that I perform when it comes to things that casual people off the street would be able to do. So in other words, I'm not going to make 2 micro soldering videos of anything. I'm not going to make 2 glass only replacement videos. But when it comes to doing screens and modular components, I think that we can look at two different audiences. One would be those of you who already have experience. You have the tools, you know how this stuff works, the ins and outs, and all the little nuances that go into breaking down a phone and putting it back together. And then we have another crowd of people who has no clue, and they're thinking, well, I don't want to spend this much money on that phone. I really need someone to kind of give me every little bit of information. So I'm going to start posting 2. So just a heads up to you guys, I'll make an official announcement, and I don't want you to think that I'm spamming your alerts, but I've got a whole bunch of videos I want to publish in a very short period of time. So if you see those notifications go off, that's just kind of the way that it worked out. I got behind and I'm kind of catching up at this point. So anything that you see labeled as pro version, those are going to be a completely separate playlist on my channel. So if you just want to say, hey, what does it look like on the inside of the phone? That's all I need to know. I will make those videos as concise as I possibly can so you don't waste your time watching stuff that you don't need to see. And then I will have an alternative playlist for people who really need the fine points and all the details in repair. And those will be focused more towards the general public. And hopefully that works out for everyone. That is ultimately my goal. Last week I mentioned something interesting. They said that in 5 years your smartphone will be able to translate your thoughts, and this is really some trippy stuff, so I want to get to that in a little bit. Also, I contacted a guy named Rob Bliss, and I don't know, for those of you who don't really keep up with it, I am very concerned by and a huge proponent of net neutrality, and there has been a lot of progress made. Something actually just happened in Washington State, and something else happened in the Senate. So we are looking at a lot of people that are kind of seeing the downside of this for everyone, and they're going to be fighting these companies. So I think we're feeling a little safer at this time that we may be able to continue to watch YouTube and Netflix without spending extra money. So that's a good sign. This guy, Rob, he's awesome. If you haven't seen his video already, I'm going to show you in a minute. He created his own slow lane at the FCC office to demonstrate what throttling internet speeds would be like. Also, notches out of control, if you ask me. I don't know if you've been keeping up with the MWC stuff, but it looks like everyone is going to put a notch into their Android phone now. I don't know why. I don't know what the big deal is, really, one way or the other. Honestly, I could care very little. But once again, it looks like Apple's doing something and a lot of other people are following suit. So I want to discuss that, and of course, I want your opinions on that as well. So let's bring the chat in. Hey, I did something right, man. I didn't know if I was going to be able to get this thing on time today because I was trying to set up all this new stuff in here, but I like to have the chat on the screen so everyone can see what's going on. Johnny Chang, the future smartphone would be a sponsor for a Marvel movie about Professor Xavier. There you go. Carl, hey, good to see you. He had a laptop problem. I am late. I totally understand. I really didn't know if this is going to work out for me as well. The original frame stickers are much thinner. Oh yeah, so talking about those adhesives, you've got to get the ones that are custom made for the device that you're working on. As you saw, the one that I had is a template made for the iPhone 8 Plus, and obviously every phone has its own little cutout. And I think the only ones that are compatible at this point are the iPhone 6s. So if you buy the iPhone 6s waterproofing adhesive for the front panel, you can actually put those onto an iPhone 6. Now, obviously, you don't need to do that, but why not? If it fits, you're going to get a little extra water resistance out of it, and it's also going to help to hold the screen down, which is never a bad thing. Not something which it should have to do, but you never know. So yeah, definitely buy those custom, and also I recommend strongly that if you haven't used them before, you buy at least I'd say 4 or 5. The first time I used one of those, it took me about 3 tries before I got it to stick down. And the thing about them is, when you set them on the frame, if you don't get them square, if they're not lined up properly, when you go to pull them off, they stretch out. So there's no way to really unstretch a piece of adhesive. So you just have a big mess and it doesn't fit the way that it's supposed to. But if you buy one for some of the older phones, they're really inexpensive, and I assume if you order directly from China, like AliExpress or something like that, you could get them super cheap. Arthur thinks, sorry man, but budget smartphones, disposable, are the future. That is entirely possible, and it may not be the future for everyone, but I think it is. You have a good point there, and this is something that we were discussing recently, with Nokia kind of introducing different levels of smartphones. And companies like, who is it? Acer, I want to say Alcatel. And again, making them look very much like the iPhone does, the iPhone 10 with the notch. Also with Android One, a lot of these phones that are being optimized to work with, basically less hardware and less muscle on the inside, but still able to support modern operating systems. So I agree with you. I think that there's, it may or may not be the future, but it's certainly going to be a bigger factor at some point, I would imagine, because we have less expensive phones that can do a lot of what people want them to. And at a certain point you wonder if it's just a contest to see if someone can create the most expensive phone that does the most stuff. And when it comes down to it, I always take a look at that little monitor on your phone that shows you which apps you use the most often, and really there's just a handful, in my opinion. I've got like 4 or 5 things that I use. I could get by with talk and text and a camera, honestly, but it all depends on the person, I suppose. What's the adhesive again? The adhesive, Carl, if you didn't see it, it's at the beginning of the video. And it is in this little thing right here. So what these are are custom templates. So these are, let's go back to the bigger screen again, if I can do this properly. Let's see, do we want this one? Nope, that's not it. I think we want to go here, and of course that is going to happen. Okay, so this is a custom cut adhesive for an iPhone 8 Plus, and it's got several layers that you peel off. You set this down inside the frame, and that's going to be made specifically for that model. So I'm trying to think, you remember we used to have the old custom cut adhesives for Android devices like the Galaxies, because you really had to cover every little area on the frame if you wanted the screen to stay down. Well, these are made to replace the waterproofing adhesive that comes on the front panel of the iPhones, which I suspect that we'll be seeing on, any phone that opens in the front from now on. It's going to have some sort of adhesive layer on the inside to seal out the moisture. So I don't know if anyone is going to be switching over to that design, but if everyone continues to copy Apple, then why not? Maybe we'll have some Android phones that start opening from the front side instead of the back. You just never know. All right, so we need to be here. There we go. And does that mean the budget phone is going to put out of business? Somebody's outside my house honking really loud. Does that mean the budget phone is going to put out of business to the repair technicians? That's a good question, Johnny. Obviously, one of the things that we run into quite often, sorry, somebody's like laying on their horn outside. One of the things that we run into a lot are people who you have to be patient with, because when you're used to working on phones that have a cost of $300, $400, $700, $800, we have a certain expectation when it comes to the labor fees that we charge for a repair. So if someone comes in with a phone that's $75, $100, it's hard to charge very much for anything, because in that customer's perception, that phone, if it's $75 brand new, how much would they invest in order to repair it? So if we deduct the cost of the replacement part and try to add some labor on top of that, we usually get laughed at, because to them it's like, hey, I have a $100 phone and you guys want to charge me $65. Well, I'll just go buy another phone. And that makes complete sense. Why wouldn't you? And one of the things that we end up doing quite often when people, a lot of times, I think everyone wants to win all the way around. So we'll have people say, well, I can go buy another phone cheaper. I don't want to pay for that, but I need to get my information off this phone. And it's some obscure model that we don't have a donor for. So how do we get that information out? At one point you could use Cellebrite on a lot of phones, but they don't support everything. And a lot of us have determined that that's not necessarily worth upgrading anymore. So I don't know too many repair shops that really stay up to date on the Cellebrite machine, because the iCloud and Google do a lot of that backup for you. So when people come in with that situation, I'll often tell them, if you want to go buy the new phone, bring it in, we'll swap the logic board out, or the motherboard, and then you'll have all your information in the phone. We don't have to worry about pulling off a display, or usually it's the repair is fairly straightforward. Now, will that reduce business for repair shops overall if people start buying cheap phones? I would say yes. Is that likely to happen on a scale that's going to affect a lot of us? Difficult question to answer. In this business, one thing that we've kind of come to the conclusion on is that when we talk about phone repairs, there is going to be a balance, and this is true within any market. In the beginning, a lot of people will jump into something that looks like a good opportunity, and then over time, there are going to be certain people who stay around long term and others who don't, and they have to kind of balance out with whatever demand the market bears. So if you have a potential for 10 repairs in a day, as opposed to 20 repairs in a day, you may have two shops that have, somebody has to choose. One of them has to go or relocate or find another way to generate revenue. So certainly buying cheap phones is going to make a difference. If customers buy phones that they don't perceive as being worth paying to repair, yeah, that's going to affect us. And, at some point it all kind of trickles downwards from the economy in general, right? The less discretionary money that consumers have, the less they're going to invest in this, that, or the other thing. Now, with that said, here's an interesting phenomena, in particular when it comes to phones, and especially when it comes to iPhones. One thing that we've observed in any location that I've ever worked in, visited, talked to, network with other people who do phone repairs for a living, and that is people will often be willing to live, what's a good way to phrase this? A lot of people will sacrifice what they could be paying towards a home or renting somewhere to stay, because they want that money available for the other things that they find important to them. So that may mean that they sacrifice, buying their kid a new pair of shoes this year because they want to buy that $1,000 phone, or they want a certain type of rim or a certain stereo system in their car. So that's one of the things that we see persists, through recessions and everything else. It's like people will set aside money for something, and that's not going to change. And we've seen this historically when it comes to alcohol and tobacco, which is a crazy thing, but it's absolutely true. I used to work with convenience store owners, and you could find someone who has the least amount of money you could possibly imagine, and quite a few of them have set aside their budget for the alcohol and the tobacco that they plan to purchase for the week or for the month or whatever that time period is. And I get the impression a lot of people feel that way about their devices, especially when we're talking about phones. So we'll have to see. It will certainly have an impact of some sort. Hey, Rachel? Hi, go cell phone repair. I have a Sam's. Is that a phone? Is OLED displays less durable than LCDs for a reason they are more expensive? I'll say one thing for sure. OLEDs are, wow. The ones that I've seen are slightly more flexible, but possibly more pressure sensitive. It's really hard to say. There doesn't seem to be I don't think that should be as much of a concern, because what's happening generally is that you're depending on the glass on the front of the phone and the metal plate or the plastic or the battery or whatever is sitting behind the display to protect it from the outside. Either one of those, if you set your elbow down hard on a table and there was an LCD or an AMOLED with nothing in between you and that, it would not take very much pressure to damage either one of those. So, I'd have to guess it's probably slightly less durable, but I'm not sure how much really. I have yet to see people who treat their phones as if they were their dream cars. Man, I got to tell you, I've seen people who, when they decide they want the iPhone 10, it doesn't matter what they have to do to get it. And this is going to be different from one place to the next, but that is my experience anyways. Let's see if we can get my browser working properly today. I've got to move some things around. Please bear with me. I'm trying to do new stuff, and usually when I try to do new stuff, I don't always get the desired result immediately. So I'm going to see if we can pull up this little thing right here. Where are you? It'd be nice if I could read these tabs when they are not. Okay, here we go. So can we get this on the screen? I'm going to attempt to, well, that's not it. How do we get to the screen capture? Do we do this? That's what we do. Okay, and then we just have to resize slightly, and boom, there it is. Okay, so this is from weforum.org. I thought this was interesting, and I kind of felt bad because last week I completely forgot to discuss this. I had it on the list, or maybe it was actually Monday this week, but they are talking about using smartphones to translate your thoughts into text. And check this out. They have this funny looking thing, which I can't really show because it's actually a video, and if you stream videos that are already published on YouTube, they automatically pick it up. So I'm only showing portions of this, but when it comes to streaming live video, it's a little different. So a team of researchers at Toyohashi University of Technology can read minds using brainwaves. And what they did is that they would have participants say numbers out loud and use a robot to guess what they said in real time based on its reading of an EEG brain scan. So they've got this thing hooked up to your head, and if you're thinking of a number, this thing apparently is 90% accurate at figuring out what that number is. So what does that mean? If we look at a technology like this, in its infancy, okay, this is just the beginning. This is something you probably may or may not have heard about. It's not being widely publicized to my knowledge because it's probably just very primitive at this point. But this is the beginning. If you think about it, this is like the beginning of reading people's minds. If you can strap something onto someone's head and you can figure out what number they're thinking about, not if they're thinking of something that has a negative or a positive response. It's not a yes or no thing. It's a number from 0 to 9, and when they think about this number, this machine can tell 90% of the time what you're talking about, and it has 61% accuracy for deciphering single syllables in Japanese. So if you're actually thinking of a single syllable word, 61% of the time, this thing can already tell what you're thinking without being able to hear what you're saying, I should say. So my understanding is the way that this worked is that they would say the response audibly. So this machine can't listen to sound. It can only read brain waves. But obviously, when you say something out loud, it requires a certain thought process to happen. And they've figured out a way to decipher this. So that means eventually, if you want to imagine this, there may be something that you wear or possibly even implant in your head that can transmit your thoughts. You thought talk to text was cool. You can think out something, I would assume, and it's going to type that onto your phone or into your phone. So you want to send someone a message, you just think about it, types it into your phone. And I don't even know if you have to press, would you have to press send at that point, or would you just think send this message? Pretty freaky stuff. That kind of psychic phone are going to be an anniversary gift from wife and girlfriends to unsuspecting cheaters, man. Yeah, it is going to be a weird thing on all sorts of levels. I mean, if you think about it, we are probably, within our lifetime, we will most likely see a point where, and I want to hope that it's if you choose this option, but we are probably at a point in time where we'll be able to think something and someone else will be able to hear or see what it is that we're thinking. So obviously, excuse me, I am recovering from this cold. I'm going to try to make it through without coughing into the microphone too often. So we're at a point in time where, this is what I'm thinking. You're going to get a lot of gifts from people, but the other side of the coin is, how could this be used for the wrong purposes? If someone was, let's say a spy were captured, or let's say someone was kidnapped and the person who had control of this device wanted to figure out what the combination or the PIN code was to their ATM, or the combination was to their safe, or something like that. There are a lot of crazy moral obligations behind a device like this. The whole concept of basically mind reading, which is what we're talking about here. If you think about it, it's a little freaky. I'm not sure that I'm ready for that, and I'm not sure I want to be around when it starts happening, because the world could be a very strange place if at any given time someone could say, I need to know exactly what you're thinking, and you didn't have a choice in the matter. Because we've all thought silly things before, right? We've all thought about throwing our phone through the television because our team lost or something crazy like that. It obviously doesn't mean that we would act on that thought. But if you knew that someone was thinking, especially with the level of paranoia that we have in the world, in this day and age, possibly for good reason, it's pretty freaky, pretty weird stuff. I am not allowing Alexa or any other listening devices in the home. Privacy implications are way too high. And Carl, we had a brief discussion on that about a week or two back. We obviously have got to choose between the convenience of having a home assistant or something that can hear us talking 24/7, or say that I'm not really into that. So I don't criticize anyone, just regardless of what their choice is. Personally, when I started talking about things in front of my phone and I started seeing Facebook advertisements that were aimed at conversations that I've never Googled, I've never texted, I've never emailed, I've never put anything into any of the devices in my home, but I've had conversations about products, and now they're being advertised to me on my Facebook feed. That was when I deleted the Facebook app from my phone, and I haven't, occasionally I might go onto the browser to check it, mainly for this. This is about the only reason I use Facebook anymore. Not to mention the strange people that we come across on there. So Ray Shell had said earlier, I have a Samsung, I have a virus on it, I tried to put it in safe mode to get the specific app out of it with no luck. Please, do you have advice? Help me. So I assume that you're referring to the FBI virus or something similar. Please have the virus on. I've tried to get it in safe mode too. So were you able to get it in safe mode, A, and B, does it have a removable battery? Because that's one of the things about these phones, that if you aren't able to take the battery out, sometimes you just have to wait until the battery dies completely before you can get the phone to shut off. That might be helpful. It's going to be a little difficult for me to go into great detail on that, but if you want to, go ahead and post the model number. And Johnny, if you have advice for her or anyone else, by all means, give her a hand. If you can post the model number of the phone and what you're seeing as far as the viruses, and real world, if you have any input on that, feel free to give her some advice. But if we know what kind of phone it is and the operating system and stuff, we might be able to help you out a little better on that. There are over 7 billion people in the world, but the government wants to listen through my phone. The government? I don't know about the government. The government may or may not, and I hear that a lot. A lot of people's reaction is that, well, if some guy from the government wants to listen to me, I don't know about all that. I'm not really concerned about the government. I'm more concerned about private parties who have access to this technology and my personal information. Those are the people that I'm concerned with. I don't think the government is going to blackmail you. I don't think they're going to do anything weird or leak your personal information outside, but I think that other more nefarious parties might. I think the same people that put this virus on Rachel's phone and are probably asking her for $300 ransom, those are the people that I'm concerned about bugging my phone and my computer and everything else. So for what it's worth, that is my reason for being concerned. Reply, well, I did an awesome podcast on the Facebook spying thing. I hope you don't mind. Not at all, playlist. I will absolutely check it out. And this is about Facebook spying thing. Cool. Yeah, I didn't know you were doing a podcast. Or is that your podcast? All I did? It says all I did. Anyways, I will definitely check that out. In fact, let me pop that open and it's probably going to show up. Let's do this. Oh, I am getting better. I'm not a professional yet, but I'm getting better. Okay, so I just opened that tab. Go over here. Now you can see my display capture again. Hey, that's pretty cool. I will definitely check that out. I'm Mike. Look, see, we almost had it. All right, so that was this. We had something else here, and I'm going to attempt to show you a video. So bear with me. This I thought was mildly entertaining. I'm also going to have to put an earphone on so I can hear what's going on. But this guy, Rob Bliss, he was kind of following, you know, the whole net neutrality repeal. And obviously, a lot of us were concerned with it and not happy about it. And I got to say, I love what this guy did. I wrote him an email and I said, hey, you know, I'd love to have you on. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it. But he did give me permission to use his video. And if you haven't seen it already, I want you to check this out. This is really cool. Which one of these do we need to go to? I think we need to go here. And I will probably have to resize the screen. So again, bear with me for a moment. Let's see. I want you to be able to see the whole thing here. There we go. And that's pretty close. Close enough, right? Okay, so check out what this guy did. And let's go back to the beginning there. All right, so here we go. It is movie time. It's my favorite part of class. Well, I guess I'm going to have to give him some volume. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to hear, are you? So let's get this cranked up just a hair because I think he talks pretty loud. Let's go back to this.
On December 14th, the FCC ended net neutrality with the Restoring Internet Freedom Order. The Associated Press said to brace for the arrival of internet fast lanes and slow lanes. FCC Chairman Ajit Pai said that prior to net neutrality, innovators transformed how billions of people live and work without asking anyone's permission. And so, with their resounding encouragement, this innovator will be restoring automotive freedom at the...
Okay, let me pause. Are you guys getting sound now? I just want to make sure. I know there's a lag here. And I see your comment, Johnny, but I want to make sure I didn't, or that I did get it turned on. So, someone give me a yay or a thumbs up or something if you have sound now, because I want to make sure you hear what he's saying. A little dim. Oh, I think it'll get brighter when we go outside. Okay, so we have sound. All right, so let's go back to this. Hopefully this will get brighter. I don't know any way to adjust it really, but I think when he goes outside, you'll be able to see better.
FCC. Without asking anyone's permission, I'll be transforming how the FCC lives and works by creating slow lanes of traffic right on their street. But for just $5 a month, drivers can upgrade themselves to priority access. And as
so what he did is he went out in front of the FCC building and created his own slow lane, which is what we've been trying to convey to people could possibly happen and most likely will happen, even though they say we would never do that. We just need permission to do that. But don't worry, we're not going to throttle your bandwidth, but we can according to this law that we need you to pass. But don't worry, we're not going to do that. So he said, look, I want to demonstrate what that looks like.
Chairman Pai said himself, consumers can pick the plan that's best for them.
All right, are we better on the sound there? I did have it down a little low. So long story short, he just said that he's going to set up an internet slow lane. I know I probably said this about 5 times. Let's see. Anyway, you can crank the volume. It's better. Okay, so hopefully you can hear that.
The thing is that if I let everyone go at a normal speed, no one would buy my passes. You know what I'm saying?
What? Okay.
Oh man, the right guy just showed up.
Oh, nice. Cool.
Why don't you pick up all your cones for me, please?
Okay.
Bring them up here. I understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to make a dollar. Right?
Yeah.
You cannot intentionally obstruct the use of a roadway. You're not going to ride in the street anymore. You're not going to block traffic anymore.
Okay, so that was the first day, right? And I gotta say, these officers are showing a lot of restraint. They're being patient. I really expected a much more aggressive response, but they said, hey, you need to pick up your cones and get going. You can't do this. And they did call them out on this. They said, look, you're just trying to make some money here, right? That's what you're doing by setting up this system where people can travel faster. They can get where they want to get to faster by paying a little extra money. You see the irony, right? Okay, so let's go to day 2.
What's the protest about?
Interesting, right? Public backlash. People are not happy about what's happening here, and we shouldn't be surprised because obviously if you go from being able to drive 35 miles an hour to 5 miles an hour because you're being slowed down, well, you're not going to be happy. The thing is, not as many people I think were excited and upset about this as could potentially be once they see the results.
Alright, man, can I have my cones back?
Thank you.
Okay. I need those cones, though.
Oh, you don't. How y'all doing? Put your hands up and lock your ass up. Why you putting in causing traffic accidents, sir?
Well, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to restore automotive freedom. The idea is, what I can do is I can sell people priority access passes.
You have no authority to do that. You're doing things the wrong way.
People can pick the plan that's right for them. It's a good deal. $5 is not that much.
Right, but see, you in the middle of the road and people are dodging it, and it's.
I mean, that's kind of reckless driving on their part. Don't you think?
No, you can't stay here. You got to go.
We're not gonna let you do it. It's not a discussion.
All right, so okay, if we want to allow it with our automotive traffic, then we shouldn't allow it with our internet traffic, right? Why would we? And here's the thing, and the reason I wanted to play this for everyone, beyond the entertainment factor, is that it just really struck me watching this video. We knew how the public would react when they're being slowed down like this, and he got out there for 3 days, and really, I think that all of the law enforcement involved there was very patient. You could have seen this thing going a lot worse, obviously. But here's the thing. Notice how not only are people upset about it, but we have public officials who enforce this. They go out and they say, look, you can't slow things down just to make a profit. It's part of the law in this country. It's part of the traffic laws that govern the roads that we drive on. You're not allowed to charge people extra to go any faster. So how, wouldn't it be great if we had all sorts of law enforcement officials that were enforcing the freedoms that we have, on the internet, and when it comes to phones and technology and and the right to repair and stuff like that. Obviously we need to get the laws in place first in order to make that happen. But I would love to see them go down to some ISP and say, hey, you can't be throttling this. You can't be slowing people down. People trying to access their information. The officer laughing about the irony seemed to have catch the message. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I said, these guys, they had a good sense of humor about it for the most part. There are a few people out there that were, a little too serious maybe. But, they never assaulted him. They didn't tackle him. I hate to say, but things could have been a lot different based on their perception or who he was. And, that is the sad truth. But long story short, they put up with it for a while. They took him off street. They didn't arrest him. They didn't handcuff him or anything that I'm aware of. So At least probably because they knew, everyone was on camera, so everyone was trying to probably stick to the letter of the law. But the fact that he did it in front of the FCC building, I thought was awesome. Hi, cell phone repair. I looked up some info. What did you need to help me? Do you know what model number you have on that phone? Because I'm wondering if anyone on here, I would have to do some research and get back to you as far as the procedure, but there may be someone here that can help you get your phone into safe mode and then delete the app or the app icon or whatever it is that's on installed that's causing that problem. Another reason to make slows a rule is if the NSA have obsolete supercomputers and don't want to invest in ones new capable to catch ones the faster of data flow. Oh, that's interesting. Hello, you're a genre. Hello, Brazil. Brazil? All right, so I had at least one or two other things that let's see, if we do this, we can see that. What do you guys think about the notch? Anyone, everyone, I'm curious. Do you want a notch? Do you care about the notch? Do you think it's kind of silly that Android devices now are doing this? And it's kind of across the board. We saw this from all the phones that were announced at the Mobile World Congress convention in Spain. We've got everything from, who was it? There are like, what do we have here? We have iPhone 10 lookalikes you can buy. We've got the Essential PH1. We've got the Oukitel U18. We've got the Asus Zenfone 5Z and 5. We've got the LG G7 Neo, which is not the flagship G7, but apparently what they said was not correct. They are still, to an extent, using the G7, but not for a flagship. They launched the V30S, which is basically a reboot of the V30, and now they're going to upgrade the V30 so that it does the same thing that the V30S does. So for all practical purposes, LG seems to have used MWC as a platform to announce that they still have the V30 because their flagship is not supposed to be available until June. However, we have something called the LG G7 Neo, whatever that is. And of course, big notch at the top. Now, why? Why do we have a notch? I'm really curious. Is it because everyone has copied Apple because they think that A, it's trendy, B, it makes better use of the display, which there's a good argument for. If you have something like your time of day, your battery meter, anything like that, and you can put that up in the corner and see it all the time, but not interfere with anything else that you're viewing on the screen, it makes sense. Obviously this is starting with Samsung a while back. It's become the era of bezel-less phones, so that's what we can probably expect to see. And the question to me, of course, is going to be how will this affect us when we're doing phone repairs? The other big concern, of course, is going to be putting the Touch ID Touch ID into the screen instead of having it built into a button of some sort, which is going to be tricky, especially if there's some sort of secure enclave that is hardwired into the display, meaning that we would not be able to replace those. We don't really know what the answer to that is yet, but it could become more difficult to replace screens. So if anyone out there has a phone with a notch or is thinking about getting a phone with a notch, I'm very curious to hear your opinion on whether or not this is even an issue. Do you think it's more of people trying to be like Apple, or is it just, hey, they came up with something that works and we're going to do the same thing? Because I don't get the feeling that when we look historically at a lot of what manufacturers do, it's not always a matter of someone having a good idea and other people saying, hey, that's a good idea, let's do that too. A lot of times it is more like, hey, this popular company is doing that, let's get something that does the same thing. And in some of these cases, these notches aren't really even functional. Like, they don't need to be there. It's like they purposely installed them just so the phones would look like the iPhone 10, which is unfortunate. And I'm just about ready to give up here on a lot of Android manufacturers, because if I want an iPhone 10, I will buy an iPhone 10. And if I want an Apple product, I will buy an Apple product. I don't want to look at the alternatives and have them be attempting to create the same experience that you already get from an Apple device. That used to be what set them apart. If you get Apple, it's completely different. It's innovative. It's got this, it's got that, and does everything backwards if you're used to using Windows. Okay, fine. But if you want to stick with Android or you want to stick with Windows, does it necessarily have to start looking like it came from Apple? Like, I really don't get that. Okay, so Rochelle has a a G550 Ti. If anyone can help her, I would really appreciate it. If anyone can assist her in getting that thing into safe mode. I can't do it while I'm doing the live stream because that would be a little complicated, but we should be able to figure out a way to get her virus off of her phone. So Rachel, hang in there for a minute. If we don't get an answer here, I'll do some research. And if you want to post on one of my videos or on this video actually, so I'll remember to reply to your comment, I'll try to figure out how we can get that thing removed. I see an Air Canada flight today in Canada was delayed when a passenger's LG phone caught on fire. Really? I did not see that one. What kind of phone? And wow, that is crazy. You know, this has been a thing for quite some time now. Let's see if we can find it real quick since we're on the topic. So LG phone on fire Canada, right? That should give it to me, I think. Yep, here we go. So, wow. I really like just being able to do this instead of having to prepare slides. Now, I can't show the video, obviously. Cell phone catches fire. This is global news. Woman injured aboard Vancouver-bound Air Canada flight. A Vancouver-bound flight departing from Toronto was delayed after a passenger's phone caught fire. Let's see. Do we have any details here on what happened exactly? Anytime you're in a plane, look, there's smoke, there's fire. We take these claims seriously. It's unclear how the LG, just cut to the end of the article, Mike. It's unclear how the LG smartphone caught fire. Gee, do you think it was a battery? Probably. That's new to me. Thanks for pointing that out. I had no idea that it happened, but I think it's going to happen a lot more, and that's another question. I want to come back to this topic in just a second. What I was talking about earlier, I was wanting to see if any one of you had thoughts on this whole notch thing. I have a friend who had his phone spammed by malware. It got so slow down the pop-ups, it was impossible to use, and he didn't want to go through a master reset. Yeah, it's a tough thing. Sometimes it's difficult to find an alternative for that. One telltale is if during the booting, the phone reports some small characters in the upper left corner because the malware seems to do something of rooting to change the system partition. Wow. I love the idea. Okay, so getting back to the notch, I love the idea of the notch. Let me move this over here. On the iPhone 10, because you have an extremely small bezel, but on these notch knockoffs, like the Essential phone, there's still a chin on the bottom. Increasing the usable screen area is a natural progression. I agree. I totally get that part. You know, that definitely makes sense. We're going to have phones, I think, pretty soon with no bezel on them. And unfortunately, probably a lot of rounded edges, which is not something to look forward to when you repair phones, at least at this point for some of us. I'd love to have a true edge-to-edge screen. The new Asus Zenfone 5 is almost a clone of the iPhone 10 in the look department. Yeah, no kidding. I saw that, man. That's crazy, isn't it? Okay, so there is a link, Rachel, for your safe mode. If you attempt to follow those directions, hopefully that will get you into safe mode and you can follow the rest of the tutorial for getting that virus off the phone. Let us know the results either way, and hopefully we can get that going for you again and without deleting all your data, which would be a bummer. Try to install fast, yeah. So yeah, I think that as far as the general public is concerned, you know, no matter what we really think is going to make our lives more difficult as far as repairing phones, that's not really the question. The question is, what do the people want? And that, of course, is going to be what manufacturers do. So if there is a demand for edge-to-edge screens and phones that don't have headphone jacks, I mean, I know that wasn't really a demand. But interestingly enough, I just tried out my dongle on the iPhone 8 Plus recently because, as you know, there's no headphone jack, and I don't typically use. Let me mute this so we don't get a bunch of feedback. I don't typically use this type of headset. I'm usually on Bluetooth, but on occasion, this comes in handy, especially when my battery's died. And to my surprise, for whatever reason, my dongle that I plugged into my iPhone 8 so that I could use my wired headset does not pick up anything from the microphone. So you can hear people, but they can't hear you. So unfortunately, I don't know if that was a defect in the product or it's not compatible with Samsung headphones. It doesn't make any sense. There's no reason why it shouldn't. But that was really a downer. I mean, if you want to get rid of the headphone jack, that's fine, but make it easy for me to use an adapter so that I can continue to use it when I need to. All right, have we gone through all of our topics? I'm actually waiting for the ticker because I didn't really have time to go through and make notes on today. So, smartphone, start reading your mind. Oh, I do have another question for you all. And that is, who should we invite to hang out with us on Thursday night? I've already got a couple people lined up, but I'm actually looking for some ideas. You know, I love the idea of having other people who repair phones or work in the phone industry in some capacity, but I'm also interested in talking to people outside of our specific industry. You know, we had a person from a hacking channel on here a couple weeks ago, and other than that, it's mostly been phone people. So I'm working on a 3D printer company right now. Hopefully they're going to get us a rep on here. I'd love to have Boston Dynamics show up with their little scary robot dog from the future, but they don't seem to respond to the kind of emails that solicit them to make appearances. So I'm still waiting to hear back from them. But I'm also curious to know, what else do you guys think would be interesting and entertaining to have someone come on here and tell us about? You know, tell us stuff that we don't know, because for a lot of you, I know that you are into phones, you know how they work. A lot of you repair phones, you know how to take them apart, put them together. But there's a lot of other technology out there that is interesting, and I'd like to bring someone on and say, hey, they're going to tell us all about something that we don't really know a lot about at this point. So if you guys have ideas, let me know in the chat. Leave a comment after the video finishes. I'm going to start kind of a marketing blitz here to get some new guests on, because I think the energy level when you have someone here to speak with you, it makes things fun. You know, I like to be able to do this as far as the presentation goes and use my OBS studio, but Google Hangouts is the only way really that I can get people on here simultaneously. So that's what I would like to do in the future. Have anyone in the chat been a follower of Ben Heck show? There's news that he is looking someone to be his replacement to pick up the relay in his show. Ah, interesting. I've actually seen Ben Heck, some of his stuff before. Did you watch X-Files? It was Revenge of the IoT Devices. I did not watch X-Files, but you know what I did watch last night? I watched a show called Electric Dreams. Now, you guys probably hear me reference Black Mirror quite a bit, because it is right up our alley. Black Mirror is a Netflix series that takes a look at how technology might end up causing some problems in the future. So it's almost like an Outer Limits, not really a horror show, but there's some kind of, disturbing things in it, and it's all based around technology. Well, Amazon kind of did their own version of that called Electric Dreams. And I saw a very interesting episode last night. I think it was called X-Ray, if I remember correctly. And what they had was, it was quite interesting on many levels. So they had kids going to a high school, and in this high school, you wore this wristband, right? And this wristband was called Dex, and the Dex was short for dexterity. I'm not going to give away any spoilers here, but long story short, in order to function in this society, you had to have this wristband on at all times. If not, you were, I don't want to say chastised, but you were not entitled to the same privileges as the rest of, everyone who had this wristband on. And of course, that wristband came with the trade-off that you're being monitored 24/7 as far as your location, your activities. It would listen for your voice cues, very similar to a home assistant, except to the extreme. And I recommend that you check out that series if you're interested in X-Files and that kind of stuff. It is pretty crazy, and when you look at it, what they're actually doing is taking the technology that we have today, kind of putting a twist on it and predicting a lot of things that we kind of assume will happen, and saying, here's how that could not necessarily benefit society as a whole, or maybe just humanity. So I highly recommend you check that out. I have not been watching the X-Files, actually. I've been meaning to do that. Got to make room for all these great TV shows that are on now. Jessa Jones, I saw, I want to say Johnny actually left a comment about having Jessa Jones on, and I am definitely in favor. Louis Rossman, I would like to have Louis on at some point, and I'm going to say that for Jessa and Louis, I would absolutely welcome them to come on. I want to make sure that that we have an audience for them, and that they are right for this audience at the same time. And it gets kind of complicated for me to explain exactly what that means, but I want to make sure everything is worked out so that it makes sense for them to be here. But I'm definitely in favor of having Jessa and Louis come on if they're willing. I still need to reach out and contact them. Whitriggs, I've actually come across some of his videos also. Thanks for that suggestion, playlist. I will look into that. I haven't had any contact with Whitriggs, so I don't know. Johnny's song for crypto. Now that's another good idea, and this is one of the things I've been thinking about for a while, is because crypto is such a booming whatever it is, or whatever it ends up being or not being, it's quite fascinating, and it's something at this point in time, and we really don't know where it's going to go. But I would be all ears if someone that knew anything about crypto came on, because my understanding of it is quite limited. So good suggestions. Thank you very much. And I will absolutely be, planning to contact Jessa Lewis. I'd like to have Jason Gann. There are a number of other people out there that I think would be able to contribute quite a bit here. Again, as long as they're cool with coming on, it'd be awesome. So Rachel says, I will, thanks all the advice we'll do for all of you guys. So cool. Thank you. And hey, we always try to help out when we can. That's why we're here. If you can reach the guy who make the Strange Parts channel, it will be pretty interesting. What is the Strange Parts channel? What is the Strange Parts channel? Let's see if we can find it real quick here. And then let's see. We have to leave that because I need a link. So YouTube, is that what it's called, Johnny? Strange Parts channel? Let's see. Strange Parts channel. Where are you? Oh, wow. This guy's got 500,000 subscribers if you're talking about the same guy. Let's make sure he doesn't autoplay on me here. Yep, he did. Okay, so are you talking about this guy right here? Strange Parts? How I made my own iPhone? Oh, yeah, I know. Okay, I've seen this guy. I actually saw one of these videos. I want to say it was the first one on the left-hand side. Yeah, that would actually be a good idea. I will put that in my notes. Thank you. Strange Parts channel. How many videos does this guy have? Because he's got like 500,000 subs. And he has 16 videos? Wow. Okay, so he got a crazy... Look at the bottom right-hand corner. I don't know if you can see that. But he got 12 million views on that How I Made My Own iPhone video. So that is what made this guy famous. So yeah, I'll have to contact him and see if we can get him to come on. Let's see if you can read. Yeah. So yeah, I will definitely reach out to these guys. I'm also interested in getting outside of YouTube a little bit. I mean, there are some very knowledgeable people here, but there are also a lot of people who do the things that we do and things beyond and outside of what we do, and they don't participate really in YouTube. So I also want to look there. But thanks, guys. All great suggestions. I'm going to see what I can find. So getting back to you, Greg said X-Files was revenge of the IoT devices. Yeah, and a lot of this stuff is like, I don't know if you remember, there was a Stephen King movie a long time ago called Maximum Overdrive, and that was kind of like when the machines rebelled. And I'm going way old school here, like back to the 80s. And there was no smart anything at that point. It was like trucks and lawnmowers and chainsaws just attacking people. I don't know if there's a chainsaw, but now we're getting closer to that reality, right? Because we don't have these mindless devices that you just flick a switch on and off and that's it. We're going towards real artificial intelligence. We're working with predictive software that can kind of try to figure out what you want to write or say next, and what your habits are and where you go. And yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff, and I will definitely check out that X-Files, assuming I have it on demand somewhere. I think we are getting pretty close to 7 o'clock, so I am going to wrap this up pretty soon. Thanks to everyone who came on, especially if this is your first time. If you will all do me a huge favor and hit the like button, that will be awesome. It will help me out tremendously so that YouTube will continue to suggest my videos. Tomorrow, I've got 2 that I'm going to publish, and I want to come back to this real quick. I mentioned earlier, for you guys who watched the video in the beginning, what did you think? Should I cut the time down even more for the iPhone 8 repair? Do you think it was just right? Was it appropriate for people who are experienced? Because the one I'm publishing tomorrow, simultaneously with that one, is going to be about 3 times as long, and it's going to go into great detail as to if this is your first time working on a phone, here's what you should know, here's what you have to watch out for. So I want to get it to where the timing feels like, hey, I need to know how to open up this phone. I can go to Go Cell Phone Repair's channel and figure it out, in minimum amount of time and get the information that I really want. So I welcome your input for that. Let's see. Yeah, they may even had a couple of Boston Dynamic robots. Man, for those of you who've... I'm trying to get permission from Boston Dynamics to use their videos, but they haven't responded to me. So if you go to their channel, they have some like crazy, scary Terminator-style robot dogs. which is interesting because on the second season of Black Mirror, they have a robot dog that looks like the Boston Dynamics dog, and it's chasing people around and basically hunting them down. So yeah, that's pretty freaky stuff. Space Odyssey 2001 was the genesis. Hey, if you get a chance, check out the video that says if Hal from Space Odyssey 2001, if Hal was Alexa instead. It's hilarious. Hey Mike, if you can if someone came to you with a broken back glass on an iPhone 8, would you fix it or turn them away because it is very difficult? And Real World said, I would not fix the back glass. Fun fact, Black Mirror is the darker reflection from a tablet while the screen goes black. That's interesting. I did not know that. That's good to know. John, if someone came to me with an iPhone 8 or 10 and wanted to fix the back glass, there are very few repairs that I won't do, but I would absolutely bill accordingly. So if something like that is going to take me a couple hours, to do properly, I'm going to have to quote pretty high on it. So I wouldn't turn them away for two reasons. One, if it can be done, short of having a freezer machine for separating glass from an AMOLED screen, most of the repairs that I've come across, I'm able to perform. It's really a matter of how much time is going to be involved. And obviously there's the liability risk, and that would be the real problem there. So with the iPhone 10 or the iPhone 8, I would pull out the logic board, and this is as of today. I may change my mind, and someone will tell me something different later down the road. But as of today, I would either replace the entire piece with the glass and bill them for that, which we know is not cheap, or I would gut the phone as far as the logic board and the battery and heat the heck out of it, because it takes quite a bit of heat to pry that thing off. And you're probably looking at least like 2, maybe 3 hours worth of labor, plus the cost of the replacement part, which if you do just the glass, I think was about $15. So, for that reason, I would not turn someone away, because it can be done. If it's something, outside of my pay grade or above my head, I'm not going to touch it. If someone wanted to do, I'm trying to think of something that I would turn away. But, the other thing is this: when someone brings a repair like that a lot of people are not willing to do, and this is something that we did for a long time. When someone brings you a repair, every time you say no, if they can find someone else close by or down the street that can do the repair for them, that customer's confidence in you versus the other person who was able to pull it off is obviously going to be affected by that. So for that reason, anytime I can say yes, I will. There are some things I won't touch. Personally, I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head right now. There's not anything too recent, but I can tell you, if somebody brought me an HTC One M7, that was one of the ones I used to hate and a lot of techs didn't like. But we just basically came to the conclusion that you have to replace the back panel. You're going to destroy it when you take it off, and it takes a little effort, but it can be done. For a while, I hated the HTC 8X, and here's another interesting point going back to MWC. HTC and Motorola had nothing to show as far as handsets go, so that I thought was interesting. I don't know what Motorola's future looks like, but obviously HTC's is at the very least questionable at this point, so who knows how long they're going to be around. The time, let's see. Time was just right, too short to make the impression of being easy. Hold on, let me make sure I'm answering this in context. The time, it was just right. If you simplify it too short, oh, thank you, Johnny. That's what I was kind of wondering. If you make it too short, the impression of being very easy, which it didn't look like. Okay, cool, good to know. Yeah, I'm aiming towards making it as useful as possible to people who kind of know their way around phone repair. So if you guys felt that was perfect, that's how I'm going to keep it. If it looked ridiculously long still, like I said, I'd love to get these down to 5 minutes. But by installing this waterproofing stuff, it's a little difficult to do it in that time frame. That's good. I like having a long time, one with tips and stuff, because iFixit one is very short. And if I was repairing for the first time, it would be very confusing. One thing about iFixit that I think is interesting, and I am a big fan, I love what iFixit does, and I found a lot of useful information there. But I get the impression they are much more strongly focused on tutorials on their website so that you can watch the still images step by step. I agree that when I've seen an iFixit repair video, they don't go into a whole lot of details about anything. It's more like a tear down look. Here's what the inside looks like, but really minimal information as far as the videos are concerned. And that's not a criticism. I think that's just their style, and that's maybe a way to drive traffic to their website. So people use those tutorials, which are far more detailed than the video, obviously. So agree 100%. Now, as far as wanting to have one, take a long time with tips and stuff, John, I did want to mention I am making a fully detailed version that is going to be the same exact repair. So again, I apologize to everyone. I don't want to spam your feed. I hope that you'll keep the bell notification icon turned on so you can see when I publish something, but you're likely to get quite a few notifications saying go cell phone repair, publish this and this. So it'll probably be a double thing, because I'm going to be publishing 2 videos at the same time whenever I do a repair, and then kind of call it a split test if you want, and see if there's actually an audience for both of those. And so anyways, both types of any type of feedback really welcomed on that. I do appreciate y'all showing up. I'm going to be back next Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, as long as it's not some crazy holiday that I forgot about. Next week, I'm hoping, or I'm planning, to have someone on here with me, but I'm not 100% sure who it's going to be yet, so I don't want to announce it and be wrong. But hopefully we have some very entertaining people coming on in the near future. Please always include the waterproof gasket in the video, because every tips helps with applying it. The waterproof gasket I am always putting in there, and I don't like to go out and criticize other people, but I am not only disappointed, but very concerned by tutorials that show you how to do an iPhone 6S, but they don't show you the waterproofing gasket. If you're not putting this inside the phone, when the customer says, is my phone as waterproof as it was before? Absolutely not, and not even close, and we're not even trying to get it there. So I think it's really important that we take this step, unless you just tell people, hey, you know what, your phone is going to leak. If you drop it in water, it's going to get wet right away. That's what this is for. I can't think of any reason why anyone wouldn't want to use this. They're very inexpensive. They get down to like 50 cents a piece, and I think it goes a long way. Again, I don't like to criticize other people's work, but when a customer comes to me, I make them aware that yes, we are putting this adhesive sticker back into place. And if someone down the street is doing this repair for $20 less, ask them if they're doing the same thing, and tell them you'd like to see the adhesive sticker that they're putting in your phone, because I think it's a real disservice to just kind of not mention that, and assume that most people are okay with not having that installed, because I certainly wouldn't be if it was me. That's just my opinion. All right, everyone, I'm going to leave the chat open for a couple minutes. Thanks again for joining me. I will see you hopefully next Monday at 2 p.m. And if not, I'll see you again next week. Same time, same place, 6 o'clock Thursday evening, right here. Probably with a different link next time, because I kind of screwed up. But I'm glad everyone found it. Anyways, I'll talk to you next time.